Okay.
Normally it should say recorded pending. No, what did I do? Crap.
L'enregistrement a démarré, cette réunion est en cours d'enregistrement. It seems to be okay.
Yay.
And yeah, it's recording. Okay, perfect. So, ni hao, hello, bonjour, konnichiwa to all the designers and product owners and more. I'm Geoffrey. I work as a designer at Foyer Group, a Luxembourgish insurance company, and we are welcoming 5 designers from Maltem Group from all around the world. So thank you for being here, folks. With your help, we will dive a little bit into career path, design maturity, and local specificities. But before that, let's start smoothly. My dear designers, can you introduce yourselves quickly, and also tell me where you are located and what time is it for you? Let's start with Yao.
Hi. So my name's Yao, and I'm a designer based in Singapore. And Singapore is actually in Southeast Asia, so it's actually 9 p.m. Well, almost 9:30 p.m. tonight. So I apologize for being looking a little bit tired because it's towards the end of my day.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we have also Chakib. Tell us more
Hi,
about
everyone. Hello, thank you for having me. I'm Chakib Tsouli. I'm a UX designer with Maltem Africa in Morocco, specifically. And we work mainly with the banks and insurance companies on various subjects in the design industry.
Okay. Stéphanie, you are well known around the world, but still, who are you?
Hi, so Stéphanie, Maltem Luxembourg, or Maltem Benelux, if you put Belgium with us. And yeah, I'm a UX designer and currently also doing a lot of user research. And it's 2:00 in the afternoon for us in our time zone.
Okay, so Luxembourg is too small. We had to gather all the country around.
Yeah.
Don't tell them. We have also Jonathan from Montreal, right?
Yes. Hi, everyone. For myself, I'm a UX researcher and lead UX here at Maltem, Canada. So I work mainly in the finance industry, but I used to work a lot in the industry and manufacturing sector. So I'm glad to be here with you guys, talk about the design around the world.
Perfect. And André?
So hi. So my name is André Inacio. I'm currently the digital art director in the agency Guiz Digital, and it's part of the group of Maltem. And now it's 2 p.m. same as Luxembourg.
Okay.
So
same time zone. Perfect.
Thank you for inviting me.
So you are not as tired as Yao.
Oh, no, fine.
Not yet.
Not yet, exactly.
So perfect. Singapore, Casablanca, right?
Yes, exactly.
Montreal, Paris, and Luxembourg. Great tour. You are all working at Maltem Group, right? But I'm kind of curious, what type of projects do you usually work on? Let's start with, I don't know, Jonathan? Surprise.
Good question. I used to work in a lot of different kind of projects, but for 1 year, I'm working on the employee experience platform for my client, which is a big finance industry here in Quebec. It's called Caisse de dépôt et de placement du Québec.
Okay.
Nice name.
Okay. What about you, Chakib?
Currently, I'm working more specifically with banks. I've had a couple projects with 2 or 3 banks here in Casablanca. And the type of project was mainly e-banking and online dashboard for client-facing solutions and business-facing solutions. But before, my first project with Maltem was in the airline industry with the Wild Air Morocco here in Morocco. But that's also the same type of project with a dashboard. So I'm specialized in dashboards and mobile apps.
Okay, so for the end client.
No, it was an internal tool for managing delays between aircraft and making decisions which aircraft to delay in terms of the importance of the payload or passengers inside.
Okay. André?
So recently I worked more on the healthcare project. But, basically, in Guiz Digital, we work on multiple projects, so it's very various. Like it can be e-commerce website, showcase website, and not even website apps, but also and motion design. A lot of things actually.
Nice.
So basically, I cannot really say exactly on what specific things I'm doing, but yeah, pretty everything, which is interesting. That's why I really like what I'm doing there. So
yeah, perfect. You're kind of multidisciplinary designer.
Yeah, I try to, and yeah, even did some code before I was a front-end developer. But we will talk this later.
Check.
So yeah, basically, I really enjoy to try things, and I'm very curious. So that's why.
Perfect. By the way, if you have a question to each other, don't hesitate to ask. I'm not the only one here. Okay, perfect. Yao, maybe what kind of project do you work on?
Well, recently I've been working on a B2B trading application for the Singapore Stock Exchange. And well, essentially I've been working pretty much mostly in the fintech industry. Then previously I had a few projects with insurance companies. Buy. Sell. Yeah.
Diamond hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and previously before UX design, I was actually working in the architecture industry. So that was a bit of a transition for me. I've been doing this. Yeah, I've been doing UX for about 3 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Do you see similarities between the jobs?
Yeah, actually, I still remember like when I was asked about that, like the first time, I thought, in the beginning that there wasn't any because you don't see much of a comparison. But I realized there are quite a lot of parallels because it's a client-based and it's a client-based industry, and also its architecture design is still essentially design. So the same principles and I guess philosophy applies as well.
Yeah.
And organization, I think it helps now because when you work in architecture, you have to be organized. So
yeah,
it's helping a lot on UX design.
You mean you don't want that the building physically fall?
I guess the stakes are higher, but like it's still very similar with the hierarchy. With the architect being at the top, and then you have contractors and structural engineers. Similar to how a designer works with developers and stakeholders. So it's similar, in that way.
Yeah.
Really interesting. Yeah.
So you do blue wireframes.
Yeah.
Blue and white.
Well, actually, interestingly enough, we don't do the blue and white blueprint thing. That's a whole that's totally movie myth, No blue and white blueprints. It's all.
It's only for spy movies and all.
Yeah. We still use normal paper, normal ink.
Sorry, people. Jonathan, Stéphanie, maybe you want to talk about your project?
Yes, sure. So in Luxembourg, basically all the designers that we have in Luxembourg, we are working directly with clients. So we don't do agency kind of things, little bit like Guiz. We all work within the company directly within the teams. So I've worked within a team with the bank. Then what Chakib said resonates with me because I also worked for an airline company, and currently I work for complicated European Investment Bank, which is kind of semi-bank, semi-European institutions. It's a little bit in between.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like the GQ as they are like para-governmental enterprise company.
Yeah, so it's the bank for the countries, right? Kind of.
Yeah,
Oh.
but they are still private. So
Okay.
yeah, the middle of the two worlds, let's say.
A lot of enterprise UX because I basically work on the tool that is used by anyone in the bank to do their daily work.
Yeah.
Which is quite challenging because you have so many different, you can't even say personas at this point. There's like so many different users. So yeah. But it's fun.
Cool, perfect. A lot of different activities and all. Okay, so we know that the level of maturity within a company can differ a lot depending on the country, on the maybe I don't know the type of company also. Can you tell us more about the level of design maturity in your area of the world? I don't know, maybe Chakib?
Yeah, I think we're getting there in Africa and specifically Morocco. Definitely exciting times ahead in terms of growth and more adoption to design principles and human-centered design. But it wasn't the case just 10 years ago. We started really late because the clients we are working with today were relying on legacy technologies and approaches. The human-centric design wasn't in the equation at all. But recently, there's been a sudden boom in terms of user-centric approaches and philosophies and the way we design and collaborate. So if I had to rank Africa in terms of each continent, I'd say it's ahead of Latin America, but a bit lagging behind Asia and Europe and North America in terms of design maturity. But it doesn't mean that there aren't some outliers within Africa, like Morocco and especially Nigeria, because in recent years we've seen some really good talent from Nigeria who are like stars in their domains and found their way through Silicon Valley giants. Yeah, but
give us names.
I think we need time in Africa here to I think the future is bright because there is some adoption from top level decision makers. They are becoming really engaged and investing in the design principles, the design teams, and I think we have just one part of the equation, which is the human part that needs to be improved because that's a point I can talk about later in a later question. But overall, in Morocco, just to give you an idea, we don't have a school that's specialized in human-centered design. There is none. There are a couple of schools, known schools here, but they do design in general, like cinematography, typography, etc., graphic design. So, but UX design and the craft of UX design, it's not really represented here. And I think we can start by solving the very base of the equation, which is the human elements, and start to building schools and investing in programs to bring this culture to young designers and help them structure their approaches and philosophies.
Yeah.
So how did you learn UX design if there's no school? Yes, now.
Schrödinger's designer.
It's a trap.
I was going to comment on Yao-Chan's career in architecture because it's not that bad because I came from biology. So I studied biology at university 12 years ago. and they made a complete reversal and switched my career because I was interested in design from a very young age. I would just go to find the computer circuits and play with them, how they are designed, how they are connected together, and just spend the whole day playing with it. So I always had that affinity to design in the back of my head. But I did biology because in Morocco I wanted to do design as a career, but there was no schools to do that. The next school I could do is in France, which is 20K a year, and it's not affordable for someone. So the solution was to become self-taught and to read articles, tutorials, courses online, certificates, etc., and practice the craft, which is the case for 80% of designers. I can confidently tell you that 80% designers here in Morocco are self-taught. 20% came from other careers like architecture, like business, like marketing, etc. So yeah, that's it. I'm self-taught and still learning because there's a lot to learn each day. There's new things to learn.
Always.
And now you are in atomic design, right?
Chakib, will you open a UX university in Morocco after a few years?
I'm sorry?
Will you open a new UX university?
That's the dream. That's I think you read me. That's something I really want to do. Like there is a great need here in Morocco for designers.
I hope a lot of people will listen to that.
We started actually here in Maltem Africa. We started the program, which is Maltem Academy, and we began doing courses and workshops for companies and individuals. With the pandemic, it was a bit complicated to sustain, but I think we can do something with it in coming year. Kickstart it again and starts offering workshops and courses.
It's great because I know it's not really rare that UX designers are teachers as well, aside of their daily job.
Who's a teacher here?
I did some.
I don't know.
Everyone knows.
Patient, you know. Okay, cool. Luxembourg, Stéphanie, what do you think of Luxembourg maturity?
I think it's in Europe, but it's kind of Luxembourg has a lot of fintech industries, and it's also super driven by IT. So the first time I arrived here, I was basically kind of being conflicted with business analysts, because usually the people who actually go to the user and ask questions to the user here, since it's really IT dev driven, are more like business analysts and not UX designers. So it's a little bit complicated to make people understand that as a UX designer, you're not doing the same thing as a business analyst and things like that. So it gets a little bit better. Some companies start building kind of their own internal design team, slowly but surely. But the maturity is still some company only want kind of one designer who can do it all, basically. I think Foyer, Geoffrey's company, is the more mature because they have a lot of designers. A few banks also have kind of 3 or 5 designers now. But in many areas, it's still kind of this UX, UI team of one profile.
The unicorn.
Yeah, the unicorn. But
Sometimes.
after a while, the cool thing is they understand that this unicorn is not enough. So it's kind of getting built within the company. Like you get one unicorn who has to evangelize, and then you can get a second profile, and slowly but surely you kind of grow the maturity. But I don't think it comes from outside. I really think it comes from like having one profile, or even like I talk to developers, and sometimes it's the developer who wants a designer in the team. They say we need to stop doing development based on framework with just specification, and that the client says it's not usable. We actually want a designer somewhere at some point in the project. So
that's good.
that's also kind of we want a designer. So if you're a developer and you want some designers, like fight for it. It's really worth it because helping a lot the team. So yeah, the maturity is a little bit weird. Like at some point, super high level tech maturity, IT, but at the same time, design is still sometime an afterthought for a lot of company. But yeah, as I said, it's growing, and we don't have schools. But we only have one in university here. Basically, we have a university with an HCI department, so they teach human-computer interaction. But they don't really teach design. So a lot of designers here, they're either from France, Germany, Belgium, all around the world. I had like Swedish people. I work with a Ukrainian guy. I work with people from India. So that's a cool thing about Luxembourg. Still, we have a lot of people from everywhere. So that's really nice.
What about you, Yao? We need to keep you awake.
Okay, I have a bit of coffee here with my,
Oh yeah.
gotta represent a little bit. Actually for Singapore, it's quite similar to Luxembourg. So like what Stéphanie mentioned, there are instances of companies with very high level maturity of UX, but there are also companies with very low maturity because the way they work is it's still very waterfall and backwards in terms of what they're doing, and also it's a combination of Luxembourg and Africa as well, like what Chakib mentioned, because even though Singapore is we're quite international and quite Western influence, so you see a lot of technological advancements happening in Singapore, and Singaporeans in general, I think, are very open to technology. You see, I think the statistics are around 85% of Singaporeans actually use a smartphone. So the smartphone usage is very high, and everyone's all quite technologically sufficient or efficient, right? So a lot of money is being spent by the government on innovation and R&D, and even you see it trickling down to design. UX design is in particular, a lot of subsidies are being handed out so that people can actually do career transitions to UX design or UI design. This wasn't the case just like 5 years ago. It was like Chakib mentioned, it was a boom, in the last few years. Mm-hmm. And for me, when I transitioned about 4 years ago, I took a course with General Assembly because just like Africa, we don't have a degree that you can take in Singapore with the local universities. We only have the more common design disciplines like graphic design, for example. So these private courses were the only avenue that we had to follow a curriculum and to follow a school to come out with a certification. So yeah, I went through the course, and interestingly enough, like in the course, it was like, I think my batch was about 20 plus people, and it was happening about 2 to 3 times a year because it was like a 4-month course. I went back to speak at that same school. I think it was last year, just about a year and a half to 2 years after I graduated, and the amount of people in one class actually doubled to about 60. Okay, not 60, maybe around 50, thereabouts. And they also doubled the number of classes within the month. So you would have 2 classes happening at the same time simultaneously. So that alone, screams to me that there's a huge demand now, and a lot of people are rushing to learn the skills needed for it. And I feel like in a few years, the market is going to get a lot more saturated. Although I think it's not there yet. The demand still exists, and a lot of companies are still in the transition phase where they are seeing a lot more value in design. But you still run into companies where they are more product driven. So it's very delivery based. Some of the projects that I've been working on, it's they've been quite delivery based, and it's all about what the requirements are from the business side. With of course, you whatever space you have, you include the users as well, but delivery is always the priority. Yeah, but then you also see different companies like the new tech startups, that I don't know why, like almost every month there's a new tech startup happening, like coming up in Singapore. And you see the way they work is very different, but at the same time, design is valued, but valued on a more, intrinsic level where they actually do take the time to not just have the workflow be only delivery based, but also allocate a lot more time for research and for testing and all that. So it's like Stéphanie mentioned, it's a mix of everything. It's very company based currently, I think, in Singapore.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. I don't know. Does someone want to add something maybe on this topic, maturity?
Me, probably.
Yeah.
In France, actually, there is. It's improving actually. Well, in France, it's following the USA, so they're pretty much in. Well, I feel maybe it's my point of view, advanced maybe, or like in the same level. So it's pretty interesting. But of course, the problem is the companies. Not all the companies are in the same maturity. So the most common difficulty that I've seen is to the company to understand the design's nature, and usually it results in representing the design as a decoration and pointless for business purposes. So most of the time, company, for example, hire a UX designer just because they follow the trend, and they don't even know that if they really need this.
Yeah, we need a UX designer.
Exactly.
For I don't know. We need it.
Exactly. So, no, probably you need just a UI designer. No. We need UI UX designer. Okay. And at the end,
no, actually, I agree. Like there was one project I joined, they never had a UX or UI designer, so I was like the first one to help them with, while exposing them to this discipline. And like after a few months of working with them, they saw so much value in it. They started hiring a whole team. They even they got a UX designer, a UI designer. They even got a UX copywriter as well. So that was interesting to see them. Make that transition.
That's
Yeah,
good.
I think.
At least they see
I
the
think I think that's exactly the situation I'm in right now, because the company, actually the bank I'm working with on a project, like Stéphanie said, I'm the unicorn there. I do UX and I do UI, and it's just me, and I'm working alone on an e-banking solution for B2B and B2C, and that's a lot. It's a lot for one person. But the bank has started recently hiring a team of UX designers and UI designers to help on to create a squad for design. And so that's, I think, like Stéphanie asked question, if who is teacher here. I think we all can be teachers, because when you, especially as a consultant, when you join a client, that client doesn't necessarily know how to approach human-centered design, what are the methods, what are the tangible deliverables, etc. So when you start teaching them the crafts and how things are done, they become interested and see value in it, and that's what triggers maturity in this organization, and they start taking the craft seriously.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, fortunately, some companies understand the impact of design in the industry, and they change drastically.
Yeah.
Which is good, fortunately.
Jonathan, do you want to? Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Yeah.
Do you want to complete maybe?
Maybe I can add some maturity knowledge here in Montreal. To let you know, guys, I'm doing. I have two hats in Maltem, Canada. I'm a UX researcher for my client, and I'm as well a business developer for the UX circle here we have in Maltem, Canada. So I kind of create my own mapping between maturity and business sector. So here in Montreal, there is a lot of video game company, as you know, well-known, and stuff like this. So all this video game sector is quite mature in terms of UX design. They have like usability lab, stuff like this. It's quite the same with the bank in investment sector as well. you usually talk with the UX experience director to create some leads with them. But in the industry sector, it's like completely different. Like I have to talk with the engineer director to say, okay, you need to have some UX UI designer within your team because you will see the value at the end, like Yao and everyone said like just now. So yeah, and in Montreal and in Quebec in general, we have a lack of talent. So like the government is always asks people to come in Quebec to immigrate, and I think so. If you are like comfortable and you like the challenge, bringing the maturity of UX within a company, you should like target the industry sector. Like there are everything to build. But if you are more comfortable to work with a team, I should advise to go to the video game sector or the bank investment.
He's trying to recruit. Be careful.
I'm not paid by the government to say this.
You are trying, I know. So yeah, Stéphanie gave us some tips already, but did you all had to try something to level up this maturity, maybe within your company already? Do you have any advice on how to improve the level of maturity for the people who are listening to us?
I think the case of the African continent as a whole, specifically Morocco, we should start by the human element, like I said, and I'm going to develop on it now, of the equation, because I believe if we solve that, we would solve a lot of issues that are down to the human parts of the equation. And one of the areas where there is huge deficit is design education. And like I said, 80% of these designers here are don't have a formal education in design. And if we start giving them young people after the high school diploma and provide them the necessary education, we could have a generation within 5 years of top designers who are very well aware of the design philosophies and approaches and can drive the maturity upwards in their industries. Because if you look at the graph of human skill, it's constant. But if we add to it the effects of digital transformation and the skills it allows the employees and the elements of the company, it's a compounding effect, and it's getting ever more complex for just the basic human skills to achieve some complicated tasks. And at the end, you get stuck with a huge gap between human skills and what should be done in a company that's been through digital transformation. And one of the parts is human elements. So we need to foster the designers and overall society, and instill a culture of design and problem solving and critical thinking when it comes to education and the diplomas we provide. But I also, there's a top level component of this problem that should be tackled, which is that in recent years I noticed a lot of my clients I work with have an idea about what should be done, and they know design is very important for their revenue and for the balance sheets, etc. But when they go hiring or working with a consulting agency, they don't know exactly what should be done. They don't know how to find the problems within the organization or within their products. And I think as consultants, we have a responsibility in educating these managers and showing them what we do, not just work in a silo, head down, produce and execute, but also sit down in workshops and teach them how it's done, because a client that learns from you the crafts is a client that you're going to have for a long term. And it's good for the consulting agency, it's good for your portfolio, and it's good for your reputation. And we know this industry works on word of mouth. So It's very important. Yeah.
And it's good for the users.
Exactly.
True.
Well said. Yeah, I agree with Chakib. First, as an advisor, we should try to understand the needs of the clients before we dive in the project. And if we find a pain point and it's not linked to UX or UI, we can just advise them to change the direction. Like, okay, maybe you don't need UX, you don't need a UI or anything.
Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting to really explain this. And after, I think it's about numbers. I think the best way to improve the level of maturity is to talk about money. If your speech is focused on business first and well organized, you can definitely make your client having a better understanding and how much the design is important and how much they can earn.
Yeah.
That works if you're into B2C because you make money, but for enterprise UX, it's more complicated. Because the trick with enterprise UX is the employees, they have to use the tool. However shitty the tool is, they have to use it. There's no competition or anything. So this is where it's becoming tricky because you can use the leverage of return on investment. So you kind of end up with having other leverages like employee satisfaction. Also, one of the metrics I've seen in employee experience, if you can use return on investment, is time wasted, which is kind of a way to say return on investment, but it's like the investment in the people, because at the end of the month, you pay people to do a job. And if it takes them twice the amount of time, it will take them 2 months to do the job. So it's not really return on investment because you don't gain money, but at some point, if you have like a really poorly designed interface, you end up having employee taking twice or 3 times the amount of time that they should. They're not happy about that. So this is what I think that there's a lot of company who still didn't understand that. Like as Jonathan said about the industry, like working in industries, those tools are horrible. And at some point, just like a usability audit, I'm not even like you should talk to the user, but just like step 1, fix all the usability issues. Step 2, do some user research to improve the tool. But just like even the step 1, sometimes they don't do.
Step 1, use your tool.
Yeah.
Use the tool you are building just to.
But we come back to kind of IT in those environments is really IT-driven project where we need to add a button. We have no idea where to put it. We will put it where it fits on the screen. And after 2, 3, 4 years, you have this gigantic stuff, which is super complicated because now you are a designer and you're trying to improve, but the users are so used to the broken thing that actually the new thing you bring seems weird to them, you know, like mental models. So I think, go ahead, Chakib.
I had this issue in a project because previously the collaborators used Excel sheets, like on paper, not even on a computer. On paper, they go and they sign, they track the numbers. But when we introduced the digital tools, that dashboard that replaces the Excel sheets and provides more insights and more KPIs and more data and makes things easier, at least for us designers, we think it's easier. We had some resistance from the users because they are used to Excel sheets. It's pen on paper. And that's a challenge in I think it's more prominent in Morocco and Africa as a whole, because even though you work on a project, on a dashboard, you create something much easier, but the users are still tactile. They like touching pen and paper. They like writing stuff. It's on the fly for them. The moment you start waving a tablet in front of them and doing usability testing with them, and you get the impression that it's something new for them. And it's difficult for them to work on, even though your design, there's nothing wrong with it. You worked on it for 6 months. You tested it, but there is an intrinsic resistance, and I think that's one of the challenges in the emerging markets, because sometimes you just there are some processes you just can't digitize. Not everything needs to be an interface, and I think that's one of the
True.
yeah, and I think that's one of the elements you should talk to your clients about and try to steer them into the right direction and the proper pain points that need to be solved. If an Excel sheet on a paper is not a problem, then don't solve it. Don't if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
true.
like,
to
build up on Chakib's point, like there was one instance where I experienced that I'm not gonna name any names. I'll try to be as vague as I can. But there was a client where they needed a they had a process of a application form, and it was done manually by paper, and then they had a whole team of people that focused on data entry. So they will receive the form by mail that the users would write and submit, and then they will enter that data into whatever platform they were using. So one of the changes that we proposed in terms of design was to digitize that form, that whole process. So to negate the whole manual process of them having to enter everything, the user can submit an application via a web page easily. So what we found out in terms of resistance for that, or the reason why there was resistance for that, was because, like I said prior, there was a whole team dedicated to data entry. So if we were to digitize it, that the whole team is made redundant.
Yep. You're fired.
Yeah, exactly. So there was some weird interaction and resistance there for the project because of that very reason, that people would lose their jobs. So yeah, there are many variables at play.
Yeah, exactly.
I know a company like that who was focused on how many people can we fire if we do that. Sorry?
Not a good KPI.
No, we won't. No, not a good KPI. Yeah, right.
I think that creates a toxic environment.
The good news is most of the time they don't fire them, they just change department and something. But yeah, that's one of the risks. If you digitalize a lot of stuff, people might get scared losing a job, especially at the moment with the whole COVID situation. I think it's worse.
Yeah, I think this is similar to the issue of the robots are going to take our jobs, because currently, yes, if everything we do is done by robots, yeah, people are going to lose their jobs because they are not ready for this transition. But at the end of the day, who is going to build the robots? Another robot? Who is going to build that robot? A human being. Someone has to program a robot at the end of the day. So this is where I think technical education needs to be rooted in the curriculum of from primary school up to high school and university. Everyone needs to at least have some technical knowledge to prepare the society for this upcoming transition.
You know that there are 3D printer that are printing 3D printer.
Yeah, which is going to be that 3D printer.
But we won't discuss about it, okay? Just to mess a little bit with you. Speaking of advice, do you have any advice for someone who would like to enter in the design field, and more especially in your area of the world? Maybe Stéphanie?
Luxembourg, I would say speak French and English. German helps, but like most companies here, you still need at least 2 languages. Luxembourgish people speak naturally French, English, Luxembourgish, German, and sometimes Portuguese, and it's super annoying. Like some of my colleagues speak so many languages just because they were born and raised in Luxembourg. But yeah, I would say this. But also a little bit what Chakib said. Even if you're a designer, be technologically proficient. Since here the whole design is usually under IT departments, most of the time you need to kind of befriend the developers. So I'm not saying you need to code, but I'm saying you need to understand enough of the technical stuff to be able to communicate easily with them teams, because then they will actually be the one who will promote your work. Like, oh, it was amazing to work with the design team. They understood us. We had great relationships. So I think it's about networking and connection. So we had like a company where basically they had a Java developer who was tired of not having any designer, and he came to a few of our meetups. So he created this kind of network, and I saw that now this company is hiring their fourth or fifth designer.
Oh, cool.
And so this Java developer came to UX meetups. He grabbed a few things around the UX theme to convince the company. And no, just like with this kind of networking and area. Also, I think for Belgium and maybe even France, like networking is a key. You need to find people you can trust, and most of the jobs are not even promoted on social media or LinkedIn or anything. Most of the time, when there's a job opening, the first thing people do is ask the people in the company, do you know a designer? And it will be the same for developers. Do you know a designer, even if you're a dev? So networking a lot, I think it helps. And it's something I don't think they teach you at school, like how to properly, and when I'm saying networking, I'm not saying growth hacking and adding everyone on LinkedIn, but really like having conversation with people and
qualitative relations.
Qualitative, not quantitative. So I would advise that to beginnings, like build a network, find a mentor, find people you can trust and talk to help you.
Yeah, and that can be a challenge, especially for designers and developers, because most of us by nature, we are introverts and we like to just look at the screen and work all alone without interruptions. But I think, like we said, it's very important elements in the hiring process and the growing the organization in terms of technical abilities.
André, do you have any advice for beginners or newcomers?
Yeah, actually, well, the most important is to love your work. So this is the most important. If you just do that because it's you think it's easy, or you just oh, it's design, so it's fine, good. I can change
you will have to talk to human, you know. It's
exactly. So basically, love your work. And I think one of the most important is you have to be curious. It's really important to be open-minded too, and especially don't be offended by feedbacks. What you produce is not representing who you are. So a lot of people take personally all the feedbacks because they have the feeling that others, they are attacking them, but which is wrong. A lot of people are rude, but not on purpose. They just don't know how to put soft words to define their meaning. So don't forget, you are not the creation. This is, I think, is important to underline this part. So
true.
Yeah, basically, you're not designing for yourself.
I would love to get this before, because I was really angry every time somebody went.
I can understand you.
What is not
don't like blue?
you hate me? What?
Actually that is a good point. Like even for anyone just starting in design in any field, it's important to have an ego, but it's important also when to not tap into that ego, you know, and remember that you are designing not just for yourself but for other people.
Yeah, I think every designer had thin skin in the beginning. Everyone took, most of us took some feedback personally. But a part of growing is learning to have thick skin and take it as critique, as improvement, because you're not going to improve one step if you don't listen to the feedback and correct it accordingly.
I think after a few years of design, you kind of like the people who are rude with you on your design, because it's like improving your skills and
exactly.
You want more feedback,
much more better.
And it shows they are interested in your work and see value in it, and they want it to succeed.
Yeah, so if you want feedbacks, don't go on Dribble.
No.
What?
Jonathan was talking, I think.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I
Jonathan.
sometimes when I do usability testing, I'm like angry of a user who always say, "Oh, it's good the interface. Oh, everything is perfect." I say, "Come on, you can do better." Like, what's wrong in it? Tell me.
Yeah, I think this touches on an important part of design maturity within the organization is looking whether an organization is organizing like hosting critique sessions like weekly or bi-weekly or monthly, where designers and developers gather and they critique each other and give feedback, constructive feedback on their work. I think that's a good measure of maturity within the organization and how they look beyond the pixels and see value in design and strive to improve it.
I think we have a meetup like that at Luxembourg, where you can ask people to test their your creation or your prototype or your application, and it's a good way to get feedback and also to grow with all the designer in the room. Okay, do you have any more advice, or do I want me to?
On my side, I
move
have
on?
two advice, which was really surprising for me because I come from France and I immigrated in Quebec like 2 years ago. And first, I had some stop from customers because I didn't create a portfolio. So maybe it's a good advice to say for you young designer, try to create a small portfolio and try to make understand your recruiter which was your approach on this portfolio, and as well try to make a prototype with different tools. For example, before I used a lot. I used to work in industry, and I used to work with Axure to make my prototypes.
Mm-hmm.
But here in Quebec, Figma like went crazy on the on the market, and first people say, "Oh, you didn't use Figma, so I cannot hire you." So I was like, "Come on, if you can
Just a tool.
every kind of prototype tool, but you have to write this on your resume, and after that's fine." So
Yeah,
I would say
perfect.
to young designer, try to create prototype with a lot of kind of tool. At the end, it's always the same philosophy of creating,
Yeah.
but just to fill this part on your resume.
Yeah.
Okay.
And about portfolio, there is a course on Coursera by Google, and they have a section about portfolio, and it's really good section. So Coursera.
Good to know.
I'm not paid by us, but by them.
I think for
André,
one more.
you were saying, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. Maybe code. I think this is something that we can discuss because everybody have different point of view of this. I think it's better. I think just to have some knowledge about coding. But if you have a lot, it's way better because you can really understand the developers. And actually, it's even better because sometimes some developers they try to cheat it and they try to say no, it's not possible, or because
yes, it is.
are lazy, but not complicated. And you can tell they see what you are saying. It's not possible, but actually it's possible, but really complicated. Okay, no problem. I understand that. So, and after I understand why sometimes they are hesitating. So, it's really easy to communicate with them if you have some knowledge on it.
Yeah.
Best ways to learn on this, at least HTML, CSS, most important. And no worry, it looks horrible and hard to read, but it's pretty easy to.
Yeah.
And I think, like Stéphanie said before, it's important to have at least one experience in the agile squad, with developer, how you can design during sprints and what they want to have at the end of your design. I think that's most important as well.
Yeah, it's true. Also material design, to learn these kind of things that like libraries too from the biggest companies is important because nowadays people try to find people who knows these kind of things automatically. So
Yo.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to add on to that. I get quite a few questions about, how do you enter the industry, or how do you transition from somewhere else in another industry. So it's, if you're a junior or a beginner designer, it's I think a lot easier in that you have a foot in the door. You have done maybe 1 or 2 projects, and then you want to move on from there. But for someone who has never done UX or UI design before, I reckon it's a lot more difficult. And the advice I always give is, look at all the different avenues you have and Google as much as you can, because Google is your best friend. Especially for Singapore, there are many ways you could get into the industry. Even though, like I said, there's no particular degree you can take, but there are courses available, and now it's quite prevalent in many academies that are even online courses that you can take. So even just taking one course, understanding what the subject is, the foundation and the skills you need for UX or UI, and then perhaps doing up your own interpretation of projects, and then going through the process and understanding it, showing that off in your portfolio and talking about the process and how you understand the process is very important, I think. And then I also had a friend who got into the industry via just an internship, and it was just one internship that he did. He never did UX before. Before that, he did a 2 to 3 month internship, and then he got converted into a full-time designer with a company.
Good.
So
That's cool.
that's also a possibility, because I think more companies, especially startups now in Singapore, are very open to getting people on board, especially if you fit what they're looking for. So I think, like what André mentioned before, it's a lot about adaptability and able to learn as much as you can, because you just never stop learning as a designer.
True.
I agree.
And don't hesitate to talk about your mistakes during your process, your research, etc., because it's always good to see that you can learn on the top of the mistakes you made. Yeah, great. Thanks for the great pieces of advice, people. I will end up this session with the last question I have for you. Is there any local specificities or challenges you need to be careful about when designing for your area of the world? I think, Jonathan, you had a topic about user trend, if I recall.
In Montreal, there is a major push on the AI company. So there is a lot of small startups who work on the AI in different kind of sector, supporting business for the industry, for the finance and stuff like this. But the point in UX research and UI as well is to make people trust the AI, because we cannot understand it. It's like a black box. But at the end, you need as well to make the people engage in this process and make them feel they are in control, and the AI is not dictating their process, but they are in control of the AI, and AI is just a tool. So I think for the people who are interested in this topic, Quebec, it's like I think at the top of the world. I think the before it's like Seattle and
booming.
other one, but I don't know, like. So yeah, and video games as well. If you want to go to the video games, I should advise to learn how to engage the people, work with gamification, stuff like this.
Nice. Chakib, I have a more specific question for you, but I hope this is not an archetype. But what about right to left language on interfaces? I mean, is it something you have to deal with in your daily basic, like designing for English and Arabic at the same time? You know that the most of the time global products are English-centered design, and even in French or German, words on buttons oftentimes break the layout. So what about RTL?
In Morocco, we don't design a lot of RTL interfaces, because even though we have Arabic as a main language, but you won't see that unless it's a government website or an institutional website or a company. But in 90% of cases, we design like English or French interfaces. So it's not a challenge that I worked on a lot, but it could. The issue with it is, like we said, it's a layout. The moment you switch RTL, you have to switch like 180 degree everything you've done in your left to right interface, and it just becomes another project altogether. And also sometimes the personas that are going to click on the translate and use the Arabic version are not the same personas who are going to work to use the French or English interface. So it's also another challenge you need to keep in mind when designing these interfaces.
More work.
Yeah, there's also there are also specific things for Arabic, because in French or English you spell words the way you type them, and letters. But in Arabic there are other nuances. I don't know what's the name in French or English, but in Arabic it's each letter has a different pronunciation depending on a mark above the letter or below the letter, or whether it's a circle, or these are new elements that are added to typography. And those things
diacritics.
In Arabic it's called shakl, but English I don't know.
Diacritics. I think diacritics, yeah. I'm not an expert, sorry.
Yeah, because it's you have one letter, but different ways to spell it depending on the words and the context. And these need to be taken into account because they are very important in the context and the typography and the way words, and because one small character could change the meaning of the entire paragraph. So that's another specific thing to Arabic that needs to be taken into account. I think Arabic is the only language with this nuance. That's another added challenge that needs to be taken into consideration.
Thank you. Sorry for the archetype questions.
No. It's an important discussion. I think we should have we should organize another workshop about this specific subject, because the Hebrew is another right to left language.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, actually, it applies to Singapore as well. But I guess I don't know if it's on a smaller scale or larger scale. But because Singapore is it's a small country, but we are very multiracial. So we've got Chinese, Malays, Indians as the biggest three races, and then you have others which will include Eurasians and Caucasians. But the official language we speak is English. But everyone speaks a second language. So if you're Indian or Malay, most likely you will speak Malay as well, or Tamil. And for Chinese, which I am, I speak Chinese as well. But everyone still Mandarin. Everyone majority still speaks English. But for certain cases with different products that you're doing, some products require you to have a bilingual option. So most of the time it's Chinese. Especially for certain applications where that your user base consists of mostly Chinese mostly Chinese users, then you have to cater for that. So the applications that we worked out on for this other client for the Singapore exchange actually includes that bilingual option. So I think some of the issues also we face for in terms of design with layout issues, once you have everything converted to traditional Chinese, it kind of messes up everything, because the amount of space for English sentence is not the exact same as the Chinese one. You also have issues like the font itself not showing visibly as well on certain backgrounds. So yeah, there are many versions of this kind of issues that we face in Singapore as well. But in terms of the other languages that we have, I think most websites in Singapore, we still use mainly English. But for, I think, journalism websites, news websites, they have different conversions to other languages as well.
Yeah.
Shishi.
Yeah, I think we can find that issue, the issue of space, even in French interfaces when you convert from English to French. Like English is very concise, very straight to the point, small words, small sentences. But in French, sometimes it can be very developed. Like CTA button can take 150 pixels, and in English it just takes 80, for example. So that's another adaptation that needs to be done, taken into consideration.
We won't
And
talk about
there's
German.
things you can't translate. Like we had a problem with the mute button. You can't. There's no one single verb to say mute in French. You have a muter, but it's like having a mutation. And if you want to translate the verb mute to mute, like in a conversation, you need to translate as mute the sound or something like that. So it's like you end up with super long. It's not just we have a lot of periphrases, but it's the same mess with German, with Luxembourgish. But with German, you can you have Abkürzung, which is a way to basically everyone knows that if something finished with KT, I think it's mean ich kite or something like that. So there's like ways that are standardized to make words smaller.
Yeah, I think German started gaining space when they just decided to merge every word together and have just one long word that without using spaces.
But then it's a mess. Like if the word is long, you can't even like put it on 2 lines or something.
Yeah, you can't really break it. Or you could, but you don't want to. Yeah, true.
Localization is a whole topic, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else, people? Yeah, we are. I think we are almost on time with the date we have at the beginning. Sorry. No more question for you. I would love to chat more with you. That was really enlightening. Maybe we could make another session one day. I would like to thank you all for your participation to this panel. You did remind us that designing for users is also designing for specific areas and specific needs. So do your research, know your users, and that's all, folks. Thank you again, and see ya.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Perfect.
Cutting the recording.
Where is the button to stop recording? And Yao is still alive.